in which this crisis is being handled is going to produce a much harsher, crueler, more unjust consequences in the next 10 years than we had in the 1980s. And that's the opportunity for all of us. Now, instead of waiting for it to hit us, we've got to be ready. I think the poll tax brought down Thatcher. I don't know what's going to bring down this government, but it's going to be economic immiseration, and we've got to be ready for that and ready to fight and ready with our alternative.
In ancient times, right, there was this thing called the God's concept, and everybody lived very simply and served this God. Because there wasn't politicians, there wasn't people like you in a job who actually make their living by putting forward these ideals. Instead, there's a very nice concept which everyone can relate to, and it's called living simply with the planet and not breaking the rules of the planet, which is, i.e., killing animals and stuff like that, and actually living properly in line with material nature and the laws that she's set down. Basically, this is where we've gone wrong, because every time in this arena where we're discussing things, the thing of the God concept, which is so big and so hard for our people to understand, it's always misunderstood because we're materialists, so the telly is telling us what to think every day, and we never get to the bottom of things, which is the planet, the things that are really, really important to us, nature.
Thanks. I actually wanted to build on the God question a little bit, but in a very different way. Okay, so one of the most depressing things about the election was that UKIP got over twice as many votes as the Green Party. I mean, the big missing constituency was the Greens. The Greens were rubbish in the last election. It was all obscured because Caroline Lucas won a seat. But if you take Caroline Lucas out of it, it was appalling performance. And one of the reasons, I think, is that the Greens haven't actually reached out to, in the way that, say, London Citizens had, to faith groups. How many active trade unionists are here today? There's a real good, there's at least one, but there's a real problem that you build social movements with lots of different building blocks, and the Greens, I think their language, the emphasis on lifestyle, and a whole bunch of other stuff is actually very alienating to other groups who could be part of a big movement. The numbers of people here, considering we've got to get global carbon emissions to turn around in the next 5 years, this isn't a great start. I mean, it's great that we're doing something, that people are doing something, but you've got to reach out way beyond the green movement to start this happening. And I think the whole language is not working.
Well, okay, I mean, that's a view. I mean, I think we need an alliance of a very diversified grouping. The rich are a very cohesive grouping. We are not. And I think it's very important, whilst I understand what you say, that we try and tolerate, respect, and build with each other. And I do think, actually, the electoral system does need to be changed. I used not to think that, but I do think society is very diverse, and there are contributions from many quarters. And we've got to positively, I think, welcome that, and we've got to use it to mobilise a mass movement. Now,
I just wanted to make the point you said earlier about you were surprised that people aren't rioting. People aren't rioting after the bank, you know, what the bankers have done. And we're not, and we haven't rioted. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the British people right now, is apathy. It's possibly caused by, if you remember, Tony Blair's decision to take us into the Iraq War, and over 1 million people went out onto the streets and marched against it, and it went ahead anyway. So that's possibly a reason for the apathy, but I don't think anything's going to really change. Like you say, it is down to us. We've got to get out onto the streets and make a fuss about this, and if we don't, nothing's going to change.
I think that's absolutely correct. At the back.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear someone mention trade unions, and you mentioned them very briefly but didn't really expand on the role of the unions in the next couple of years. So I'd like to ask what you think the role of the unions is, what you will do personally to support them, and what you think others in this audience can do and should do to support the unions in their role in presenting the alternative options, the alternative system.
I think the unions are immensely important. I'm a very, very strong positive supporter, and I intend to do all I can, speak at meetings, join in any demonstrations which they've got, where I can play a part. There are 7 million trade unionists in this country today. There were at the height about 12, 13 million. the Labour Party has about 150,000 compared to 7 million. It's the root of the Labour Party, the foundation of the Labour Party, and I don't think the Labour Party has much meaning if it is separated off, split off from the trade union movement. I think they have been decimated by Thatcher, and one of the worst things about New Labour is that they failed to use their power to give the proper rights and responsibilities and opportunities to new trade unions. No one wants to see strikes, no one wants to see disruption, but we want to see a balance of power in the workplace so that trade unions...
That's what we need, a general strike then.
Well,
strike and disruption.
Okay.
Out on the streets, string them up. That's what we do need to see.
Okay.
Yes, otherwise nothing will happen.
Unfortunately, it is, as others have said, you've got to be very careful not about alienating. We don't want to turn the great mass of British people off. What we do need is reform of the trade union laws so that trade unions have proper access to the major decisions which are made in industry, in the workplace, in their companies, issues about closures, about moving plant, about investment, all of that should be shared between managers, and we want good managers, and we should respect them and pay for them. But we want equal power for trade union and employee representatives when it comes to the really big, major strategic decisions. I think trade unions are hugely important. They're a massive asset which at the present moment has been parked, marginalised, vilified, and it is the role of the Labour Party to change that, and I'm ashamed that after 13 years they didn't.